Hello and welcome. You're watching QTV and you're watching the Week in Review. I'm your host Ade Darami and my co-host once again, Mohamed Lamin Choi. As ever, Mr. Choi, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darami. It's a pleasure to join you once again, and we welcome our viewers to this program.
Thank you for that. And viewers old and new, the program is called Week in Review for a very good reason. We review some of the big stories from the week, well, 10 of them. And this week we'll be looking at ECOWAS deciding that the ECOMAC mandate in the Gambia is to be extended. And we'll tell you more about that. We go to COP28, which has just ended. And we go particularly to Youth Day. What was that all about? And why does it matter that the youth had their own day? We go along the River Gambia, something that most of us don't do. And in fact, the World Bank has been scolding us for not doing so. And also, originally, this story was going to be broadcast with the headline, "Finally, the Gambia has a trauma and injury plan," but that was too long. So we'll be delving into that. These are some of the stories that we'll be looking into as we go through the program. So stick with us, won't you? Now, we start with the fact that ECOWAS recently had an extraordinary meeting. And one of the many things they had a lot on their agenda that day that they had to debate was whether they should extend the mandate of ECOMAC, that's the forces who are here from various West African countries who are here in the Gambia. And they decided that they would. Have a look and have a listen.
The authority decided to extend the mandate of ECOMAC for another 1 year and instructed the Commission to continue to support the Gambia in the implementation of the White Paper and the needed defense and security reforms. In his address to the summit, President Barrow said his government continues to work in consultation with all stakeholders to nurture and safeguard the existing peaceful and stable environment in the Gambia. He used the opportunity to thank ECOWAS, ECOMAC Mission and troop contributing countries and partners for the support in maintaining peace and stability in the Gambia. Also, he encourages ECOWAS to continue accompanying the Gambia in its effort for sustainable peace and security in the Smiling Coast. I reassured this summit that we are devoted to implementing reform programs that enhance effective performance, operational efficiency, and judicious financial management to attain our national goals and targets. Importantly also, implementation of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission recommendations is on course, said President Barrow.
The voice of our colleague Aliou Cisse there, Mr. Choi. Not a surprise necessarily that I think this has been kind of signposted before, that the ECOMAC mandate in the Gambia would be extended.
Yes, for sure. And during ECOWAS summits, especially annually, we've seen that subject, coming there and decisions taken by the ECOWAS heads of state.
Sure. And
once again, the mandate of the ECOMAC has been extended
for another year.
This is what we, although some, would expect it to happen, but there are others also who might have thought that, we'll be moving to the transition phase,
sure.
Okay, whereby, the ECOMAC, the military, force of the ECOMAC will phase out,
sure.
And will transition to police and
sure.
all of that. So these were the things that, were put in place to make sure that they are implemented,
sure.
At this time, after when the mandate of the ECOMAC expires.
Sure.
That was what we were expecting. Now it has been extended, and until when we don't know, because every ECOWAS heads of state summit we tend to see the subject coming there and decision for extension coming.
Well, this was a sort of extraordinary one that was called at short notice. But one of the things when it was debated in the office, and the question was asked for how long, after the 1 year, and I said that we keep telling people that we're still going through our security sector reform. Until that is concluded, it probably, ECOWAS probably thinks, well, it's not appropriate that we should end this troop deployment. But I think we have to be honest. There had been some feeling that, oh, these people need to go. But then we've seen what has happened in our sub-region in terms of coup d'etats, where in places that we thought were, potentially stable. So the region is unstable. One isn't saying the Gambia necessarily is, but
yes.
I think we cannot be complacent.
Of course we cannot be. And in our last program I said that the trend of coup d'etats that we've witnessed
Sure.
on the continent must raise alarms
Sure.
for every country on the continent,
Mhm.
including the Gambia.
Sure.
Of course, the security sector reform is going. Even though it's a peaceful country, we've seen some, you know, some developments
A few
which
incidents.
really can raise, a few incidents. Of course, very major. You know, the courts have, you know, have made their decision.
Sure.
You know, the judgment. Of course, what I'm referencing here is the attempted coup
In
in the Gambia here.
Yeah, sure.
It was taken to court, and
Yeah.
the court have found the ringleader of that coup guilty,
Guilty.
although some were, you know, were released, lack of, you know, substance to prove that they were guilty. So, of course, that is, you know, a major incident
Sure.
which the ECOWAS can rely on.
Yes.
Because, okay, with the government of the
As
Gambia
evidence.
can go and, you know, use as one of the, you know, pieces of evidence
Sure.
to convince the heads of states
Sure.
that, of course, there is, you know, there is peace in the country, but there are, you know, there were some developments
Sure.
that really, you know, should be taken care of.
Yes, I mean, I was sort of so slightly perplexed because you've said that the government can use that to convince them. But when I heard some of the pronouncements that came out of the conference, I'm not sure that the government went with them and asked for. They might have done in the case of the troops, but certainly in the case of them telling Gambia, hurry up and get your new constitution, I doubt whether the government went and told them that. And they also told them, hurry up and make sure that you adhere to you know, the TRRC recommendations as you said you would. So they were kind of prodding them. But I think for me the biggest surprise that came out of it, and certainly in Sierra Leone it was a surprise, was when they said they were going to deploy a stabilization force in Sierra Leone. People went, what? Well, we didn't ask for one. So, you know, it seems as if some of the judgments they're making are not necessarily because they've been requested by host countries or governments.
Yes, they shouldn't be waiting for requests. They've been reading into the current situation affecting the continent. And also having that sense of feeling that really they must be proactive rather than reactive in tackling the problems that we're facing. So they must not be waiting for governments to come, you know, and request. There should be, you know, teams deployed to these countries that have been affected, or countries that are also, you know, facing the looming threats of coups, and, you know, assess the situation, the security situation of the country. And then, you know, with some intelligence gathered, you also, you know, brief the heads of state on the, you know, on the status quo and what measures to take, rather than waiting until, you know, disaster strikes
and then,
and you want to come and, you know, tackle it. So really, that is what I have seen. But when it comes to the constitution and the transitional justice process in the country here, not only ECOWAS is asking for the Gambia to expedite the process, but also, you know, major development partners of the country
civil society
have been asking for it, civil society organizations. But just very quickly, the heads of state during the, you know, Meet the People tour, you know, although not in every meeting, but in one of the meetings and at his press conference, stressed his government's commitment to deliver a new constitution in the Gambia. He was asked whether they are going to introduce another one aside from the draft one. He said, we're going to, you know, invite stakeholders, political stakeholders, to sit together and have a consensus on the draft constitution for the way forward.
We'll keep an eye on that one. Thank you for that, Mr. Choi. And now on to something completely different. Conference of Parties 28, or COP28, which is the UN Climate Change Conference, just ended just before this show started, or days before the show started. And on one particular day, they handed it over to youth, and they called it Youth Day. Why did they do that? This might tell you. Have a look.
Really excited that you know, Youth Day is a day that is focused on the COP28, and we want to see that it is not just a day for the youth, but we want to see the COP becoming more youthful, in the sense that many negotiators are being given the opportunity to have youth at the center of negotiation.
A global study conducted by the UNDP in 2021, targeting 10,000 youth from 10 countries, found that over 50% of young people felt sad, anxious, angry, powerless, helpless and guilty about climate change, while 45% said their feelings negatively affected their daily lives.
Well, I said before I introduced that one, why did they give a day over to youth? Well, we heard there about anxiety, fear, etc., that youth are feeling, and they wanted that reflected at COP28, and possibly they felt that in previous ones the voice of the youth was not reflected. So a good thing.
Yes, it's a good opportunity. It's a good coincidence that the COP28 happened at a time also when Youth Day was commemorated. So really another opportunity for the voices of the young people to be lifted and be considered in the decisions coming from the COP28 in order to make sure that their concerns are addressed, because the youth are not only the leaders of today but also the leaders of the future. Of course, this world we are living today and in the future, some would be gone, some will still remain,
of course,
but ultimately, majority of whom really the prospects is that the young people will witness and take charge, the affairs of the world. So climate change crisis affecting the world today can continue, and if they're not addressed, if youth concerns are not addressed today, the same problem they will face in the future.
Yes, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the things that was noticeable was, as I said, they gave over this day, called it Youth Day, and but when we got to the end of it, not everybody was happy with the final communiques that were issued. So did they listen to the voice of youth?
Yes, absolutely. Well, there wasn't, a consensus among parties, even the leaders today, many of whom are not youth.
Yeah, quite.
Okay, they were at the center of negotiations. Of course, youth should have been also considered. To some extent, I don't know, but the major decision, makers, world leaders today, do not constitute the youth population.
No, indeed, this is true.
And of course, there were some conflicting interests among state parties in, at the COP28, debating on semantics after the draft resolutions.
Yes. Do we talk about phasing out, or do we talk about reducing the dependence on it? Phasing out means a gradual phase till it's over, and others, of course, were not happy about that. But so they kind of struck some sort of balance in the end, I guess.
Yes. So at the end of the day, well, what happened? Instead of considering the future of this world, the future of young people, politics dominated. Political interests dominated
and
negotiations. Yes, political. Of course. Yes. Thank you for saying that. Political and economic interests really dominated negosations, because you will realize, of course, advanced economies have used fossil fuels for many years, which they've harnessed and developed their countries. Of course, today, at the detriment of weak economies, economies like the Gambia, we're facing climate change crisis when our greenhouse emission is really less than 1%. Our contribution is less than 1%. So the political and economic interest was more of central or the dominating force in the negotiation, rather than considering the future of young people.
Thank you for that. And so, as you heard there, politics, economy dominated to the future of young people. And that takes us on to another story which has something to do with economy, and that is a World Bank report which came out recently and said that the Gambia is not making the best use of the river Gambia. Have a look, have a listen.
Although many towns are along the river Gambia, the river is not currently used to provide connectivity between them or between them and the port of Banjul. The study also indicates that the river transport services are poorly integrated. There is only minimum coordination between the National Food Security Processing and Marketing Corporation and the other barge operators over the use of barge fleets and freight terminals. This is a missed opportunity as almost all of the country's exports leave via the Banjul port.
Almost all our exports leave via the Banjul port, as we heard from our colleague Jude Njai there, Mr. Choi. But as somebody who came to the Gambia, and it's one of the things that struck me, how little traffic there is on the river, commercial traffic. Is this a surprise to you as somebody who's lived here pretty much all his life?
It's not a surprise because I was born, in this country, witnessing the same trend. Okay, even though in the past, at least we can say, there were some measures implemented by the government for, the harnessing of the river for transportation, because there were some, ferries ferrying people from Banjul to other parts of the country rather than, the major traffic from Banjul to Basse. That Lady Wright, Lady Chilal or Lady Wright, ferry. Of course, it used to happen. But the River Gambia, we've learned when we were in high school, junior school, that is one of the most navigable rivers in Africa.
Which is irony.
That is a huge potential. Sure. Of course, the British colonized this country with so much interest in the Gambia, despite our size, despite our little, natural resources. But one thing they found to be, very vital, very important, is the strategic location and the navigability of our river.
That's right.
Of course, I read history. And
in fact, it determines the shape of the country, the river. Essentially.
Yes. In fact, the name was derived from, from the river.
Right.
So, I read history and I understand that at some point the French wanted, the British, they wanted, exchange, for them to, to do some exchange deal.
That's right.
And Ivory Coast was put on the table to be an exchange for the Gambia from the British.
So that it could be subsumed within Senegal.
Yes. So that was debated in the House of Commons. But at the end of the day, it was rejected. Why? What I read, one main reason why it was rejected is because of the river.
Yes, and how navigable it is.
And how navigable. Yes. And the strategic location. Gambia is very close to Europe.
Of course.
It's closer to Europe more than many African countries. Of course, So within the country, how do we harness this? Of course, during the Media People Tour, I had the president, revealing plans, of course, with support from the U.S. government, the Millennium Challenge, Compact, and all those things. Now they're trying to, to see how best they can invest in river transport, whereby, boats will be, put across. So many ports will be constructed, and boats will be introduced to transport goods and services. But not only goods and services, but also people. And he referenced the fact that, in fact, we will restore what used to happen in the past. We used to have Lady Chilel, Lady Wright, transporting people from urban Gambia to rural, parts of the country. So when we harness this, at least it can reduce the burden on our major roads, and also it can ease intertrade between and among regions across the country for more economic growth.
Yes, thank you for that. And one of the things which struck with me in the World Bank report, it was saying that even when they do use the river to go to the Banjul port, it comes laden with goods and then goes back empty. There you are. Well, thank you for that. And now on to story number 4. As I said when I was introducing the program, it was going to be called Finally the Gambia Has a National Trauma and Injury Plan, where that's a kind of giveaway, because finally we have such a plan. Why do we need such a plan? Well, listen to these statistics and you will be shocked. Have a listen.
At Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, over a year period in November 2020 to 2021, we collected data daily, and that showed over 100 serious injuries requiring admission a month, and an average of 17 deaths per month. This also happened to coincide with the period of COVID, and there were more deaths from injuries than there were from COVID during the same period.
more deaths from injuries. Mr. Choi, anybody who knows me and has watched me on QTV know it's a statistic I've always banged on about, but probably when they hear it coming from Dr. Marina, they'll believe me. But as I said at the beginning, the story was going to be, finally, we have such a plan to deal with injury and trauma. So I guess the next thing we have to think about, if we're going to have injury and trauma bases around the country, do we have the money?
That was what I wanted to say, because you know, I heard from the Ministry of Health's plan revealing that they have planned to build a trauma hospital, okay, trauma and injury hospital.
That's right.
Which I think is under construction or is about to start.
Right, right.
Stand to be corrected, which is good. Okay, this should have been here, you know, for a long time.
Sure.
Okay, but it's not bad that we have it now, and it's not also bad that we're having, you know, a hospital, a major hospital,
Sure.
that will be dealing with such cases. He's right. You go to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, major referral hospitals in the country. You see, you know, the amount of cases that they're receiving. Imagine daily over 100.
Yeah, quite.
This is quite serious.
Yes, and 17 mortalities a month.
17 mortalities.
From road traffic, by the way, injuries mainly. Yeah.
That's serious.
That's quite shocking.
You've seen the accidents that we receive, you know, we're witnessing on the roads, not only accident, you know, fire, and, you know, and others.
Sure.
So having a trauma, you know, an injury plan.
A national plan.
Yes, a national plan.
Yes.
We really help government to move towards, you know, a particular direction towards addressing this.
Sure.
Because without a plan, there is no mechanism put in place in addressing the crisis that we're facing when it comes to trauma and injuries. So we must have the plan and also establish the structures across the country, not only a hospital, you know, centered in the Gambia here.
Clinics.
Yes, clinics or units at, you know, at hospitals.
Sure,
if we do not have the money, you know, for now,
specific
then
units.
there have, you know, specific units.
Sure.
Because there are certain serious injuries. You go to the, you know, the regional hospitals, they cannot take care of them.
And that's the point I was going to come to, because in fact in the discussions at that event, that was one of the things that came up. Somebody gets injured very badly in a car, they take them to the nearest hospital they know, but it's not necessarily a hospital that's equipped to deal with that person, and that person ends up losing their life just because they've been taken to the wrong hospital. And
so
exactly
you know,
the case.
in the interim, because you know, to establish special facilities designated for only trauma and injuries. Of course, right now it might be difficult, but we must equip our hospitals, establish units within these hospitals that will be, you know, that are designed to address such cases. That will be more sustainable, and for the longer term, we can try to see what the way forward in terms of the plan.
Sure. But so thumbs up to all of those who were architects of this plan, including Dr. Marina, I was told. So thank you for that, Mr. Choi. Takes us on to story number 5, which will also take us to the midway point of the program. A young man, Gambian, we invited him because we'd seen some of the stuff that he was doing, and we'd been contacted that he was in the country, and we thought, we can't miss this opportunity to speak to him. Why? This might give you an indication. Have a look.
If you think of the brands like QCell, QTV, it's recognized everywhere, but it creates a certain mindset in people. If you say, I work for QCell, people, there's an idea they'll have of you. That's the brand. Now, what about yourself? What image and idea are you creating in other people's minds before they meet you, or when they meet you, when they interact with you, when they finish working with you? When I think about my brand and the brand that I'm putting out, is a person who not only inspires, but challenges, teaches.
There we heard giving Amadou Chico Sissoko. As we said, 3 times he's delivered talks at TEDx, and highly accomplished young man, and yet somebody who, if you listen to the whole interview, did a lot of this against the odds. People told him, you can't do this, and for him that was like, okay, I'll show you. Really inspirational character.
Yes, quite inspirational. When I heard him, you know, speaking, in fact, you know, I think I asked you, is he a Gambian?
Yeah, quite.
And he said he's a Gambian.
Yes.
And I felt very much proud of, you know, his accomplishments. You know, having trained more than 10,000
Yeah.
young people across
And
the
he's got a YouTube channel, so people can check out a lot of his individual sessions that he holds with young people. So, and it's free. I mean, you can just click on and you can watch it. And as I said, very inspirational character.
Very, very inspirational character, from whom young people can learn.
Sure.
Of course, in a very short interview with him on the news and also on the This Morning,
Sure. Yeah.
people had the opportunity to to hear from a young man who is a Gambian,
Yes.
and also doing very well at that international level,
Yeah.
impacting, training more than 10,000 young people across the continent.
That's impressive.
That's quite impressive.
Sure.
And when I really believe in numbers. When I saw that number, really, I was really struck by it.
Sure. So
And hopefully, young people like me, very young people, will have to tap into the expertise, the wisdom of people like this.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to put you on the spot now. You said your brand, how you want people to perceive you. I hope you don't ask me the same question, but if you were to, what would your brand be, as it were? Because he said, just as a company has a brand, an individual should have a brand as to how they wish to be perceived and received.
Of course, he referenced QCell, QTV, but the brand that I want to put out there,
As an
of
individual.
course, when you look at the brand, when you look at the brand of QCell and QTV, it's the combination of efforts of of individuals put together. I personally, what I want to put out there is that brand of public service. Public service, integrity, and dignity.
Right.
Of course, these are the things that I want people. Whenever people see me,
And
whenever people hear me,
Yeah.
they will feel that high sense of public service,
Sure.
dignity, and integrity in my personality. Yeah,
I think that's absolutely brilliant, and I'm glad you didn't ask me for mine.
I wouldn't. I
And
have
that
forgiven
takes
you.
us to the halfway point, and we will go for a break, and join us after this commercial break. Don't go away.
The future is now. With QCell's 5G network, experience speeds like never before with our new 5G Rocket Fix internet plan. Get speeds from 10 Mbps to 100 Mbps. Your 5G-enabled devices. Walk into QCell headquarters to get one of our 5G routers and experience the true feeling of 5G. Only with QCell. QCell brings you the future. Tech, innovation, incredible speed. The future is now. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunyapus. We innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching QTV and you are watching the Week in Review. I'm Ade Darami, and here going through the stories with me, 5 of them so far, Mr. Mohamed Lamin Choi. Mr. Choi, thank you for your interjection so far.
Thank you, Mr. Durami. It's a
Thank you.
pleasure. Yeah.
And before we go into the next stories, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, all the people who stop me on the streets and tell me how much you love this program, I have to say a big thank you to you, and just also to say, tell your friends. In fact, even tell your enemies. Okay, tell everybody.
Absolutely. So,
But story number 6, we have at least one, maybe more, World Heritage Site. I think the stone circles are one, but also certainly Kunta Kinte Island is one such. Are we taking enough care of it to make sure that it is not lost? Hey, you probably know the answer, but have a look and have a listen.
Coastal infrastructure protection, that's what the project is going to do. And then this infrastructure work is going to be done here and also along Fajara to Senegambia. So the one which is going to be happen here is going to be a preservation method for the island to ensure that the island stays as it is and then from further damage. This is what we want to do here.
And there we heard talking about infrastructural sort of reconstruction and rehabilitation. Mr. Choi, we have, as I said, is a UNESCO heritage site, World Heritage Site. We also have a selfish interest, not just to preserve it for history, but also it could potentially be a tourist attraction given its pivotal role that it played during the transatlantic slave trade.
Of course. I think it's one of the most popular tourist attraction sites in the Gambia, here, given the routes, you know, by
exactly,
you know, Alex Haley, you know, all of that.
Sure.
And I've been there, and when 4 to 5 years ago.
Right. Okay.
But what I saw is exactly, maybe, you know, it's even worse than what I saw.
Right.
The state of this place right now.
Right. Right.
And this also includes some other places, you know, historical, you know, sites. And, you know, I had always had this, you know, feeling that one day I will go back there and, you know, report about the urgency for this place to be rescued.
Sure, sure.
Of course, climate change is taking its toll
for sure
on the island.
Sure.
You know, part of it being, you know, being eroded and,
you
know, claimed by, you know, by the sea.
Yeah, cool.
And that is bad. It's not properly conserved.
Right.
Preserved. It's not properly preserved.
Sure.
You know, the structures are, really not, you know, standing as it as they should be.
Right.
Some are falling, you know, some are in a very, you know, bad state.
Sure.
We have resources in the country here, and some of them are our historical artifacts.
Sure.
But of course, we must also invest to change them into, you know, from being resources to assets.
Yes, sure.
And this is how we attract tourists to come.
Yeah.
They must be accessible. They must be, preserved.
Sure.
How do we do that? Is by ensuring that there is investment. You know, this is you know, a rescue effort.
Yes, indeed.
By the World Bank. I see it as a rescue effort.
Very much so.
Given, you know, the state of that place and order. You go to Janjambure, also the same thing.
Yeah, correct.
The slave house.
It's all falling into
ruin. Almost you know, it's falling, and you know, you can find a very small portion of the building there. What can people, you know, how can that attract people?
I mean, and you need to compare to Gore or Elmina Castle in Ghana, and look what they've done with those.
Yeah, I travel, you know. China is a country that really preserves its history, spends so much money.
Sure. And
there are people are visiting these places.
Yeah, sure.
And these places are making a lot of money.
Sure.
Okay? Even a train, a very old train that is not in use right now.
People still
the government preserves those trains, leave those trains there, and also modify them into businesses.
Sure.
One, there's business inside the train.
Yeah, quite.
Two, people are coming there, you know, using it as a tourist destination.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so these are the things that we must be doing. We must not be waiting for our development partners to come and do them for us.
We should have our own ideas.
We should have our own ideas.
Sure.
Invest.
Sure.
We must invest in our history
sure.
today. If not tomorrow, the future generation will find very little, history to learn from or to learn about the Gambia.
Thank you for that. That's a sobering thought, Mr. Choi. And as you said, it's not fair. And so to those who have the power, the resources, and the know-how, we have to do this. Thank you for that. Now on to something else. We hear all the time about, young people going abroad, seeking greener pastures. And sometimes when we interview them, including some that I remember Mr. Choi interviewing, out of 5 of them, I think 2 of them said, one said he was a carpenter, the other said he was a motor mechanic here in our office upstairs. But TVET, technical vocational education, is something that is kind of ramping up now. We're seeing the importance of it. And so have a look, have a listen.
About 40 years back, when I retired from RVTH to do my own business, from 86 to do my own business, name it Malik Mendy Tailoring, which I took an overdraft of $1,000, which the bank manager was hesitant to give it to me, and one machine, which I started. Up to now, no grant, nothing. I build up myself with heavy loans. I believe in myself, I do it.
From $1,000 overdraft from a bank to a large-scale enterprise, this is the story the Higher Education Ministry wants to promote and sell to inspire hope in the youth to take up the opportunities available in the country. Equipped with the state-of-the-art facilities, this tailoring company provides professional tailoring services for both national and multinational entities and has generated employment for at least 50 youth.
And a journalist whose voice I don't recognize was telling us about this in that story. But on a serious note, it's about upskilling our youth, because not that we want them all to leave the country, but if they were to leave the country and they had a skill, it makes them more of an asset to somebody who might be trying to recruit them from a country that potentially can end up paying them rather than them going and doing menial jobs.
Yes, of course. You know, you've seen the amount of remittances we benefit from the diaspora. If you know, much part of that as you know, have some skills,
skilled labor,
because it's highly paid.
Yeah, quite.
You know, in European, you know, in Europe, in America.
You have guys who they're motor mechanics or they are carpenters and they earn more than doctors and lawyers in England, and plumbers.
Someone told me that plumbers are earning a lot of money.
Highly valued. It's true. It's true.
Just one day,
and we mean proper plumbers, not the jokers who come and mess up here and call themselves a plumber. You know, like properly trained.
Absolutely.
And those skills are highly valued because
that is what we lack, the professional training. Okay, people go you know, through apprenticeship. You understand, and there's no formal education. Within a short period, you know, they haven't spent much time on, you know, apprenticeship, going through formal education. They leave and then start their business.
Yeah, correct.
It is not really helping.
Yeah.
You had this, you know, this man who started 40 years ago.
Malik Mendy.
Yes, Malik Mendy, and where he is today.
Sure.
It is not that there are no opportunities in the Gambia here. What the problem we have is a shortage of skilled labor.
Yes, indeed. And one of the reasons why I was glad that you highlighted Malik Mendy when you went and that the minister actually visited him is that this is somebody who trains his staff and actually encourages them if they want to leave. He actually helps them set up because he knows that he has trained them to a very, very high standard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was why, you know, the ministry also, the minister went out to visit, because the Gambia government now, you know, among the key priorities of the National Development Plan is to promote TVET, TVET education in the country. And Malik Mendy is doing, you know, a lot when it comes to training young people in the area of tailoring. So what the minister wanted was, okay, this is what you're doing. You're providing training opportunities which you want to promote in this country. What we're going to do, I will instruct NACA to sign an MOU with your business so that you'll be accredited, and those that you train will also be certified to certain degree from certificate, diploma, and all of to formalize it, which is quite good.
It's good. It's good. And as you say, you know, these are skills which they're mobile skills that we can develop our own country, and it means that we don't have to pay big fees to import people to come and do these skills because we don't have these skills here. If we train people to the right level, we have the skill sets here.
And the money stays.
And the money stays here. That's a very good point. Thank you for that. And now onto a story which takes us just next door. Senegal, the Ousmane Sonko. In fact, on my way to work this morning, I gave 4 ladies a lift, and I kid you not, what were they discussing? The Ousmane Sonko case. Why did the Supreme Court refer it back to Dakar? What am I talking about? Have a look, have a listen.
Sonko, 49, was struck off Senegal's electoral roll after being sentenced in absentia in June to 2 years imprisonment for morally corrupting the youth. In ordering Sonko's reinstatement, the judge in the capital Dakar confirmed a ruling in October by a court in Ziguinchor, the southern city where Sonko is mayor. Jubilant Sonko supporters were in court on Thursday and chanted his name after the ruling. Sonko has always maintained that he is the victim of a campaign to prevent him standing for president. In late July, he was arrested on other charges, including fomenting insurrection and endangering state security.
Mr. Choi, the never-ending Ousmane Sonko saga. Every time you think, okay, this is it, something else pops up. Were you surprised that that case was referred back to the Dakar court, which then gave this judgment? Did that surprise you at all?
This is no, I'm not surprised because due process needs to be followed.
Sure.
You know, a decision was made by a lower court in Ziguinchor, and it was challenged.
Sure.
So the matter was referred to the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
And then the Supreme Court ordered for that case to be looked into again.
Yep.
And that was why it was assigned to the Dakar
Yes,
court.
effectively the High Court.
Yeah,
really.
the High Court. I think,
yes.
it's the High Court.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's a slightly different system
Here.
But I think initially it was
It's
a
more of a high
magistrate's
court,
court,
yeah.
and you can't go from a magistrate's court to the
Magistrate
Supreme Court.
To the Supreme Court.
Yes, yes.
So the Supreme Court, had to refer it to the High Court. And now the High Court has made a similar ruling, confirm that the decision that was made by the lower court in Ziguinchor is valid.
Sure.
And of course now Ousmane Sonko and his team, they were trying to put an alternative, for another candidate.
Yes, quite.
But this is also another opportunity for them to file, to file that bid,
on his own behalf.
Yes, on his own behalf.
Yeah.
So what the court ruling means is that he is qualified to contest.
Sure.
Of course, if you are added in the electoral list, it means that you are qualified to contest.
Indeed.
He's still in, he's still, languishing in detention.
Right. Sure.
And he has, until the 26th of December.
That's correct.
For decisions, for him to file his nomination and all of that. So this goes to tell you how important strong institutions are in the country.
Sure.
Because of course it would be against the other side. But now due process has been followed and the decision has been made. But the government of Senegal also,
they've said they will appeal.
Yes, they also have right to appeal.
Sure.
But the decision by the High Court still remains.
Sure.
And they are heading towards the election in February.
Yes,
Let's see how it comes out. As you've seen, as we've said, there have been dramatic unfolding, events happening.
Sure.
Whether it will turn against Ousmane Sonko this time around after the appeal from the government, we wouldn't know. We will observe.
Yes, and just very quickly, I mean, Ousmane Sonko, as I've mentioned many times, he's gained a lot in popularity since the last time he stood for president, when he only got 13%. Since then, he's established quite a power base, and he's a real contender. So
a real contender.
Thank you for that. And from Senegal, we go global. Recently, there was the Global Refugee Forum hosted in Geneva, Switzerland. Lovely place. Have a look.
A major human catastrophe is unfolding in the Gaza Strip. And so far, the Security Council has failed to stop the violence. The events that have occurred in Israel and Gaza since the 7th of October are outside the mandate of UNHCR. Tragically, however, we foresee more civilian deaths and suffering, and also further displacement that threatens the region. I cannot open the Global Refugee Forum without first echoing the call of the United Nations Secretary General for an immediate and sustained humanitarian ceasefire.
The UN states that there are currently 55 armed conflicts across the world, and many of these are likely to create more refugees.
We first heard Filippo Grandi speaking at the event, and then latterly our colleague Babukar Sise talking about the fact that currently there are 55 conflicts globally. It's quite a shocking statistic. But all of those are likely to create refugees. But of course, we had to start with Filippo Grandi certainly had to start by mentioning Israel-Gaza war, which has created many, many refugees.
Of course, and the international community has really failed, to address the problem.
Sure.
But we wouldn't blame, the majority of countries because of the, we saw, the line through which they voted, at the UN Assembly.
Yeah, sure.
But at the level of the Security Council, it has been one man show.
Sure.
Majority deciding, for a ceasefire, and one man vetoing that.
Oh, that's right.
It goes to tell you, the urgency that is prevailing for some reforms to be done at the United Nations in order to ensure that, global crises are addressed, by majority of countries rather than few people deciding.
Well, this is it.
Yes.
And in fact, what was mentioned at that refugee forum, I know there was heavy interest in and discussion around Israel-Gaza. They mentioned by name the many wars in Africa that have created and are still creating refugees. So they talked about in the eastern DR Congo, they talked about in parts of Uganda, they talked about Sudan, they talked about the conflict in the Anglophone and Francophone Cameroon, they talked about Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso. All of those have created refugees. And so, you know, this is something that, you know, sometimes doesn't get to the international forum in terms of media rather, but this forum really brought it home to people that, look, we need to do something about this and do something very, very quickly.
Yes, there is that emergency. But what I have observed is so much attention on, you know, on few cases.
Yeah, this is it.
Of course.
They even mention some as being the forgotten war. Yeah.
Forgotten wars.
Yeah, yes.
Of course, you know, the list is at least 55 conflicts around the world.
Least, yeah.
At least.
Yes.
But you watch the news, you hear, you
one
know,
or two.
Yes, one or two.
Ukraine.
You know,
there you
the
are.
Israel-Gaza conflict.
Yes.
So yes, this shows you that, you know, with so much attention on those few conflicts.
Sure.
Really, it is telling you the priority and the, you know, and the political interest of the international community.
Yeah.
You know, what direction, you know, are we moving for, you know, towards? How much are we investing in addressing these problems? More money is going to, you know, is going to Israel. More money is going to Ukraine.
Yes. Ukraine just asked for another 60 billion.
You know,
yes.
just United States, you know, funding, you know, in billions. And what they've just asked for is more than $50 billion US. Yes. Imagine that money alone, you know, that money alone, if it were, you know, if all countries, you know, including the US, the European Union, you know, would come together, mobilize resources and put up, you know, such amount of money to tackle the, you know, the global refugee crisis we are facing, how much could we have achieved?
Well, this is it.
But the priority really is what is the problem.
It's a big problem, and one of the speakers at that forum mentioned it, and it kind of had everybody sitting up. He said that the Sudan war alone, the civil war which is now raging, the people displaced by that are more than at least 5 or 6 of the other so-called big ones that get all the attention in terms of the number of people displaced. And that really brought it home to everybody that we really need to refocus and treat everybody equally in terms of, you know, these are refugees and they need our help.
There are many people dying in Sudan.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
There are many people dying.
Yep.
You know, refugees, you know, so many refugees. But the future of this, you know, of these people, of these refugees are hanging in the balance.
Sure, sure.
Really, with little attention from the international community. There must be leadership, you know, good leadership at the international community to ensure that there is justice, to ensure that there is accountability mechanism towards addressing global, you know, problems, because one conflict in Africa, one conflict in any part of the world is a threat to world peace.
Well, this is true, and you know, we have people in Europe trying to put up barriers and borders because people fleeing these conflicts are trying to get to Europe, where pretty much it's a haven, really. There's very little wars happening in Europe, you know, Russia, Ukraine apart. There aren't any. And so, you know, that's why people were fleeing to the continent that they think is the least troubled. And yet, what we get is, depending on where you're coming from, they'll either open the door or they'll slam it in your face. You know,
Absolutely.
we see how they opened the doors for Ukrainians in Britain.
Absolutely.
And just took them in. Ministers, everybody was saying, take in a Ukrainian family. But if you're from our part of the world, it's like, keep them out. And so, as you said, it's all about priorities.
And this must teach us lessons.
Yeah, sure.
You know, Africa, the Gambia, we must preserve the peace that we have. We must preserve the peace.
For sure.
Because when it goes to a worst case scenario, we stand alone.
Yeah, this is it.
We have very few friends.
Yeah, this is it.
And, you know, given you know, the fact that we are a poor economy, really, when there is no peace in this country, with little friends to support this country, it will be devastating.
Sure. A very, very sobering thought. Thank you for that. And that takes us to our final story. Yes, already. And if you go through an airport, you'll see people there checking you, and you know, some of it back in the old days, they used to have a book and they would write stuff down. Now it's all done biometrically. And so QIT have been training some staff at our airport. Why? Have a look, have a listen.
In an era where information is a powerful tool, ethical conduct is the foundation upon which we build trust. And every passenger that passes through the Gambia has entrusted this in your hands. It is equally crucial to have proficiency in data analysis, a skill set that empowers border security officers to make informed decisions swiftly and effectively.
Fatim Badji, who of course was once upon a time a minister, and her father was the High Commissioner to Sierra Leone.
And also to China.
Indeed. And, but on that specific one, she mentioned the point there, in an era where data and capturing of information is crucial, the people who attend to you as you go through our airports and ports need to be skilled up to be able to handle modern technology which rules our lives, and that's what they're doing.
Of course, that's important, and you know, in airports, airports across the world now rely on technology,
biometrics, most
biometrics.
Of it. Yeah.
Some of them, you know, automated. You know, I've seen, you know, airport gates where you wouldn't need, you know, personnel standing there and attending to you.
Every time I go to London, I just turn over my passport in the scanner, the doors open, and I'm through. Yeah.
When I arrived, you know, when I arrived in Beijing, you know, at the Beijing airport, and I saw everyone was just, you know, using a smart bots, you know, software, you know, sort of, and they were, you know, entering their data, and when they are done, the door opens and they go without even, you know, going through so much checks and all of that.
Exactly.
So this goes to tell you for efficiency, at our airports. You know, technology must be strengthened.
Sure.
But not only that, the capacity of those people that are working there, the capacity of those people, because technology is developing every day.
Rapidly.
Okay, rapidly. So as it develops, we must also continue developing our capacity.
Sure.
Without which, we will be behind times. We wouldn't be, you know, we wouldn't be up to date with these latest technologies in order to move alongside with the rest of the world.
Well, this is it, and there are so many benefits from it. I mean, when it's all done and it's scanned into a computer and the person enters your details, they're less likely to say, you know, give me something so that I can let you through, because, you know, someone else can check that electronic signature or detail that has been input to see whether you're somebody who should be allowed into the country or not. And so all of these things, you know, as Fatim said there, you know, it's about trust, building trust of the passenger in the people who are administering their passage. So I come to the airport, I see you, Mr. Cho, you're the immigration officer. I don't have to wink at you and slide you some money. I just give you my details, or you look at my passport, you enter my details, bang. It's quick, and it speeds up the process as well.
We must equip our airport with latest technologies. You go to other airports, you know, around the world, you come back to the Gambia here, you see that we are really behind, you know, we're really behind time, you know, so we must equip our airport with modern day technologies for more efficiency in, you know, in moving towards where we want to see ourselves. Without which, really, you know, things are very slow. You know, look at the infrastructure at the airport; it's quite poor. This is
outdated.
This is where people, you know, this is the first impression
of the country.
Of the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
People come, stand there for a long time. You know, the ACs are not working. You know, the machines are slow. You're having to wait for a long time, taking you, you know, what should take you 1 minute is taking you 5 minutes.
Or more.
Or more. It's costing us a lot of money. It's really putting our reputation, you know, as a country, you know, at stake. You know, it's just very bad, and we need to improve on that. People, build the capacity of your personnel. Upgrade your technology infrastructure to be in line with international standard for more efficiency.
I could not agree with you more, and I think that's a beautiful point on which to end the program. Just leaves for me to say thank you as ever for your intelligent insights. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, Mr. Darame.
Pleasure having you here. And to you, the viewers, it's always a pleasure having you. And until next time, goodbye.